Beyond the Clef is presented by Director's Choice.
Hi, welcome to Beyond the Clef. I'm your host, David, and I'm here with Jason Dove. How are you doing, Jason?
Pretty good.
All right, well, thanks for being on the program. Jason is the choir director from Deer Park High School in Houston, Texas?
Yes, just southeast of Houston.
Southeast of Houston. Okay, great. Yeah, and so there's a lot of kids in your program. That's what I hear.
There are quite a few.
How many are we talking?
Probably around 520 to 530 next year due to the hard work of our junior high programs and what they've been doing for a long time. And thanks to Barry Talley for what he established there as well.
Barry Talley was before you setting it up?
Yes, he was there for 34 years. He's still on as the fine arts director, and he does a great job.
Cool. Well, yeah, the legacy obviously is there. So how many kids are in the school, or how does that work? You have a freshman center, is that correct?
There's a freshman campus and then a sophomore through senior campus. So they kind of have it split.
Oh, yeah, sure. You're right. Yeah, our campus is about to open a new freshman center this fall, so it's going to be a big deal trying to figure out how that works. So you have two campuses. How many kids, just to help us kind of get the big picture, how many kids are total in both campuses about, you think?
Probably close to 4,000. We graduate real close to 1,000.
Okay.
So there's probably a little bit more than 1,000 per grade, and the senior class is close to 1,000. So I think that's about the size. Right.
Okay. All right. And then you have how many middle school feeders?
There are 4 middle school feeders.
Okay.
And we are lucky to have, they all have pretty good enrollment. Some of them have 300 kids and 200 kids. They all have 2 full-time choir directors that are dedicated, and that helps in the success of the programs. Okay,
so I'm thinking 500 kids, that means you have approximately 125 kids per grade, if we're just going to be, statistical about it, I guess. And so what I'm thinking is, and that's up and down, of course, and you have different years where you have more or less different grades to sustain that, but that seems like a lot of students to manage.
It's a little bit tricky. I think we graduated 76 or 78 seniors this year.
Sure.
So it
kind of tapers down.
It kind of tapers. And we're lucky we're on a 7-period day. I taught before at Marcus High School. We were on an accelerated block.
Okay.
So it was a little bit trickier to keep students on an accelerated block schedule.
Right.
And a 7-period day opens it up. So it's kind of nice. The freshman campus has a little over 200 kids. We have about 180 guys in choir, and then 330 females in choir. So it's kind of a nice mix.
And how do you split up the choirs in such a large program? And then the freshman center first, is that close to your same building, or do you have a separate staff over there because it's a different campus completely?
This past year we kind of did both. The program's big. I feel like I need to be at the South Campus, so I can go over to the North Campus. But I was a teacher of record on the North Campus this past year. But
you say South and North. What do you mean
South
by
and North? South Campus is 10th through 12th grade.
Oh, is the okay?
The North Campus is the freshman center. So I felt it was kind of important for me to be there. So we're kind of trying to ease into the fact of maybe having the freshman campus kind of be a standalone. But we kind of have a unique situation where all of our kids in the top group, which is about 90 kids in our top choir, they all audition for region, and it's great for us to have all hands on deck to kind of divide and conquer everything to prepare that. But the freshman campus is kind of split up. We have Stacy Nissen kind of leads a mixed choir, but sometimes we divide that out. So there's a freshman mixed choir that's kind of the premier ensemble for the freshman campus, and sometimes it's the top women and top men. And there's also a secondary men's group, a secondary women's group, and then a third women's group. So that's how the classes are kind of divided up at the freshman campus.
Okay. And then is it the same kind of a model at the high school campus?
At the high school campus, yeah, we kind of have them split up.
I say high school, I mean the older campus.
The 10th through 12th grade, we kind of have them divided up. We used to, when I first started there, we had a mixed choir, a second mixed choir, but that was kind of like the third tier girls with the second tier and brand new boys.
Okay.
And we just kind of all agreed that we're going to kind of separate them and try to really get to them, because if the girls are waiting for us to work on tone quality with the guys, then it's kind of they don't get as much, and we can't move them along in the process as fast as we want to give them the opportunities that everybody else gets. So we've kind of divided everything up kind of the same way. So second period is I guess we would call it like our third tier girls, and third period is the swing choir or the pop group, the a cappella group. We do a cappella much like Edie and Matt Woodward and Wes Davis. There's tons of programs, Rockwall, they're really getting into contemporary a cappella now. So we've kind of converted that over. And then fourth period is our chorale, our top mixed choir that goes as a mixed choir for UIL and a men's choir and a women's choir as well. And then 5th period is Miss Ladd heads up that class. It's select women, and they're phenomenal. It's a non-varsity treble choir, but it's a varsity treble. I mean, it's amazing. And then 6th period is the 2nd tier men, and then 7th period is the 3rd tier men and the 4th tier women.
Okay.
It's kind of how it's laid out.
Okay, I'm sure I'll remember
lot.
all of that. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. Okay. No,
It takes a long time to manage who's can be
Sure.
in what room, who's available to help where, and
Of course,
it
right.
takes a lot of planning and a lot of experience from Stacy Nissen, Donna Jackson, Anita Ladd, and then from Mr. Talley as well as the fine arts director to make sure that we've got things managed to where no one's on an island by themselves.
Right. And so how does that look when you're planning out your year, I guess? Is that the fine arts director and the principals, they're all on board with trying to get everybody's schedules to work out so you can...
Well, it's been kind of in fluctuation because when I came on, I was a new staff member,
Right.
and Mr. Talley was the fine arts director and the choir director.
Okay.
So now he's the fine arts director, and so some of the schedule had to change a little bit, and then we kind of tweaked it a little bit this past year because Miss Talley, Debbie Talley, his wife, also taught for us some, but now she's gone into a role of the full-time accompanist for the district. So, and then we just added Tommy Van Sickle to our staff. So each year the staff has been different. So the first year was 4.5
yeah.
directors. Last year was 4 directors. This year is 5 directors. So we've kind of played with it.
I see.
Because
And
of
so
that.
You have 5 at the high school.
Yes.
9th and
9 through 12.
9 through 12. And then how many, I guess, total middle school choir directors?
There are 8 total.
8. Okay. So now in your world, do you end up managing and helping the curriculum for all, I guess, 13 of them? Or do you kind of, does the director, fine arts director help that? How does that look?
We have like team meetings, vertical alignment meetings.
Sure,
We
sure.
talk about
Okay.
things and kind of go through things. Everyone kind of has their idea and path that they're successful
Right, of
in, and we
course.
just try to figure out, well, if you're doing this counting system, you're doing this counting system at the freshman
How does
campus.
that go to
How
you?
can we
Yeah.
unite that? I mean, we're all using solfege and
Oh,
things
right.
like that. So
right,
I mean,
right. Yeah. Okay.
it's not a big issue on that.
And so a moment ago, you were talking to me about the Kodai method. Did
Yes.
I say that correct?
Yes, Kodai.
Kodai. Okay, I'm going to work on that one.
It's fine.
All right. And so what do you do with Kodai?
Well,
And how does your approach change in the high school based on that?
Well, the approach is, I mean, a lot of people think that he's I'm giving stupid background stuff, but he's an ethnomusicologist kind of. He
Right.
found all the Hungarian folk songs. There are all these things that he did, but there's a big elementary push. I
Right.
taught in Plano for a little bit.
That's what I think of when I think of
Yeah.
that is elementary. And so how does that go with the jive with the high
it's more of
school
a scope and
approach?
sequence of how they present material. Like there's an oral thing, like they present material, and through the process they gradually reveal and name things. I'm overly simplifying how
Right.
they do it, but for me, there were some things that I was already doing that were kind of following that because they're common sense. But it's a matter of so many times in the choral programs we do our set warm-ups and they're the same warm-ups, and at some point the kids get bored, check out, and that use of time is
Done. Yeah.
done.
Because they're
And
not
so
actually
you-
engaging their brain.
They're not
just going
engaging
through the
anymore.
motions. Right.
So they go from warm-ups and they go into a sight reading, and then you go to your literature. Well, the idea that a lot of people teach anyway is that those 3 should all connect. So your warm-up can connect to the sight reading, or your warm-up can connect to what you're going to teach in your music. Your sight reading can be drawn from the music you're going to present that day. So it's one of those things where there's like a long-term goal, and you have to have things planned out a lot better.
Sure.
If that makes sense. And it's just it's just simple things like you just take your normal warm up and they're singing whatever they're singing, and you just all of a sudden I tell the kids, hey, switch to solfege on that. And then if I taught it by rote, then they're all like, or they can put it on the staff. I'll say, hey, this is your do now. Show me what you're singing as you sing it, or switch to a rhythm syllable like tas and tees on the chevet system, stuff like that. But it's just an approach to where you just have to look at the long-term thing. So sometimes you can just do a warm-up of a pattern, and that pattern may be, patterns of fourths that I'm doing. And in the sight reading example I put up now is, oh, here's fourths. Find all the fourths. Okay, these already. We warmed those up.
Right.
Just kind of things.
Sure.
But you don't want to point out the obvious. You want them to discover.
Right, exactly.
And-
And my assistant and I are right now doing that. We're trying to go through and figure out how we want to present the material. And now that you're saying this, it's exactly what we're trying to do is that Kodai method of getting the information to them. It's really just maybe a thought process in the oversimplified way to think of it, a
Yes.
thought process of how to introduce curriculum to the kids,
Yes.
right? Because really, music is music.
Mm-hmm.
Music is, whether you're talking about saxophone or you're talking about singing or you're talking about the violin, music is music. It's just what medium are you using to get that out and trying to get that. So I'm really going to look into that thought process too, and when I'm framing my conversations in the next couple of weeks.
I've enjoyed doing it. I took some class at SMU on it. They have a choral track, and they also have the elementary teaching track, and there's other places that offer it. And
Right.
I just finished one this summer again.
Sure.
So it's been good. And then trying to get, along with that, Jeb Mueller at University of Houston came and did a whole workshop with our entire district on lesson planning. And it kind of blew my mind because it was this Fibonacci sequence. I don't know if you know the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah,
but
it's like the circles. Is that what?
it's like how a tree grows, but it's like a number. So you have 1 minute,
yeah,
1, 2, 3, 5. So 1 plus 1 is 2. You kind of get the idea.
Sure, right.
But he kind of took that and he broke that down into how you should do a lesson. So like your first minute is stretches, then
interesting.
you add another, 2 minutes, and you do something else. Then the next thing is 3 minutes of your warm up, 5 minutes of your sight reading, 8 minutes on your first piece, then 8 plus 5 is 13. So 13 minutes
Oh.
on your big piece of music, and then stop class and do an announcement. And do your announcements in the middle of the class.
Right.
He has all kinds. I can't steal his thunder because he's got awesome stuff with
Sure,
all
I'll
the
have
things
to have
on
him
it.
on.
But it's just a really cool thing, and I'm trying to figure out how to meld what I want to do with the Kodai approach with that lesson plan that he has, because I just feel it would be really effective. Because when he presented to us, he presented in the plan, like he followed the minutes and everything, and we were completely unaware. It was one of those moments where you're like,
Interesting.
oh, now we know what you did.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was really neat.
Now, and I'm not crazy. The visual representation is like a expanding circle or spiral. I'm gonna have to look that up because
I think that it is.
Okay, because I didn't want to just say that and then people all of a sudden like circles. What are you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's a really fascinating way to. I'd love to see that in practice.
So he's got. I went and looked it up again. So I was like, I need to refresh my memory. But that's the great thing about TMEA. You can go and he did a session and you can click on it and then you have his handout and you're like,
Right.
oh. And he even kind of labels your pieces. Like he talks about like a piece that's maybe really on the verge of what the kids are capable of, and then a piece that the kids can just come in and make music with right away. Like having your literature choices, having things that are in their wheelhouse. You use a lot of good terms that that are good for teachers to kind of look at and grasp onto to be more effective in their classroom.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's really exciting. I'm going to have to look that up, too. A moment ago, you mentioned your a cappella groups, and you said that there were a lot of choirs doing, was it a cappella you were mentioning?
Yeah, they're starting to do contemporary a cappella more and
so
more.
you're saying it's more, you're doing that more and more. What would be the benefit of doing that for people who maybe aren't doing that in their programs? And why do you think that it's happening now more and more? Why do you think it's catching traction?
Pentatonix.
Right.
The Pentatonix, the sing-off. And actually, once the kids start, there are some benefits, and again, this goes back to my crazy Kodai thing, but singing without accompaniment is when you can get the best tuning. A piano is tempered tuning. And so if you really want in-tune singing, then you can go a cappella and the kids listen more. I think this was our first year to really convert the swing choir over from more of an accompanied group to an a cappella group. And I felt like all of the kids grew, but some of the kids that may not have been my strongest singers grew so much because they had to be so vocally independent and so secure on their intonation throughout whenever we were learning or performing things. And I think that it challenged and pushed them. And the other thing that I kind of really like about the contemporary a cappella is we have so many students that are going to be doctors, lawyers, dentists, nurses, whatever they're going to be. Sure. And they may not be able to fit time in at a university to be in a choir, or because of what their classes are. But all of these college campuses are now having all these pop-up a cappella groups. So I'm like, well, now our kids have an experience to where they can continue singing. It may not be Brahms,
Right, sure.
or Mendelssohn or anybody like that, but at least there's the joy of singing that they learned through whatever medium we gave them in our rep list before the a cappella. That gives them a foundation to go there and do those things. And this is icing on the cake. You're not in the a cappella group. You have to be in the core groups. You know,
Sure,
you
sure.
can't just get chocolate. I mean, I would love to just have chocolate, but you've got to have the meat and potatoes and everything else. So that's
Well,
the
that makes
icing on the
sense.
cake.
Well, and I feel like in some ways that's corollary to what's going on and the conversations that I've had with Gabe Musella in Spring ISD, who's doing chamber music. And there's a lot of similarities there in that smaller ensembles can be more flexible with their schedules, but then it adds on to the core what you're doing. But it's easy to just, be able to have 4 or 5 people get together or 10 people get together or 2 people rather than trying to get this larger ensemble together. And it also seems like that creates, again, my thing is I'm not trying to create an 8th grade band member or a high school all-state member. What I'm trying to do is create someone who's going to love music for the rest of their life. And I feel like in that case, someone could be 60 years old and get with a bunch of friends and sing in a group because of what you're teaching at Deer Park.
And I think that's what a lot of people are doing, and I think it's a great. And I'm new to this, so this is something that I learned from my colleague Wes Davis, and then Edie Cooksey and Matt Woodward, and there's all kinds of people that have kind of laid the foundation for people in Texas. I think Matt just did a session at TCDA on it.
Okay.
And so
Matt
Woodward. And
Woodward.
he's
Okay.
At MacArthur High School.
Okay.
MacArthur Park is his group.
Okay.
That he
Yeah.
works
So
with.
people can try to get that off of the TCDA files, or maybe
Yes.
they could try to find that. So.
He taught us how to beatbox. Actually, it's vocal percussion, not beatbox.
All right.
but
Well, here's
yes.
a microphone. Go for it.
It's boots and cats. You say boots and cats.
That makes sense.
Just say boots and cats.
Boots and cats.
And then take the vowels out. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. Boots and cats. See, you're already vocal
There
percussion.
we go. I'm doing it. Well, thank you so much for being on, and that's absolutely crazy. And I'm glad that we got the beatbox in the middle of this. We have here Jason Dove from Deer Park High School. Really appreciate you coming and being a part of this project on Beyond the Clef. And thank you to your staff and everybody a part of that large program.